It all started on a June afternoon, when the air smelled of ripe mangoes and the distant echo of children's laughter danced between narrow lanes. Ayan had never been the type to chase after noise, but that day he noticed Zoya sitting on the curb, sketching quietly with a worn-out pencil on the back of a school notebook. Her eyes were fixed, her brow furrowed slightly, completely immersed. That moment etched itself in his memory like a bookmark, quiet yet unforgettable. Their families had been neighbors for years, close enough to borrow sugar and gossip, but Ayan and Zoya had always existed on the periphery of each other's lives. Something changed that summer. With college breaks aligning and long days stretching lazily ahead, they began to spend more time together. It started with small things: helping Zoya's mother carry groceries, waiting under the same porch for the rain to ease, a casual wave from balconies that turned into familiar smiles. Ayan found Zoya's presence calming. She was all color and motion, a walking expression of life. He, in contrast, was drawn inward, someone who carried the weight of silence comfortably. But Zoya asked questions that didn't feel intrusive. She noticed things others didn't, like how he always paused before speaking or how he avoided looking at family photographs. She never pressed, just listened. One evening, during a power outage, the two ended up in the same room, waiting for the lights to return. Ayan had brought out an old battery-operated radio, and Zoya, curious as always, tuned into static until a soft old song began to play. It wasn't dramatic or magical, just two people sitting a few feet apart in the fading orange glow of sunset, humming to a song neither fully knew. As days passed, their bond deepened. They would sit on the rooftop at dusk, speaking about things they never dared mention elsewhere. Ayan told her about his elder brother, how his absence had created a space in their home that no one talked about. Zoya didn't say much, just sat close enough that he could sense her listening. That quiet companionship made something shift inside him. Zoya, too, had her confessions. She often felt invisible in her family, the youngest of three, the one whose dreams were often dismissed as whimsical. She wanted to be an artist, to travel, to live beyond the expectations mapped out for her. "Do you ever feel like you're meant for something different?" she asked one night, her voice soft against the background of distant temple bells. Ayan had nodded. He knew that feeling too well. What neither of them admitted was how their presence in each other's lives had begun to feel essential. Zoya started bringing Ayan small things, books she thought he'd like, sketches of things they'd seen together. Ayan, in return, began speaking more, allowing silences to be filled, trusting her with parts of him he didn't show others. They laughed more easily, sometimes over things only they seemed to find funny. One day, Zoya came down with a fever. Her parents were out of town, and Ayan offered to help. He brought her soup, stayed just long enough to make sure she was okay. As he sat by her bedside, she looked at him with tired eyes and said, "You feel like home, you know?" He didn't answer, but he didn't have to. His silence wasn't empty, it was full. The more they spoke, the clearer it became that their connection was no accident. Yet they never labeled it. No, "I love you," no dramatic promises. Just quiet understanding, gestures that spoke louder than words. There was a night when they watched the stars in silence. Zoya pointed at one and whispered, "If I had to name that one, I'd call it us." Ayan smiled. He didn't believe in fate, but he believed in moments like that. Their parents remained blissfully unaware, treating their growing friendship as harmless. And maybe it was. There was nothing scandalous or bold in what they shared, no secret meetings, no hidden messages. Just two people discovering what it meant to be seen. Ayan began writing again, something he hadn't done in years. Poetry returned to him like an old friend. Lines inspired by her laughter, her stubborn optimism, the way she could find beauty in broken things. Zoya once read one of his verses and teared up. She didn't say why, and he didn't ask. Some things didn't need explanation. As the summer dragged on, the intensity of their bond grew, but so did the awareness that something powerful was happening, something neither of them had planned for. It wasn't puppy love. It wasn't infatuation. It was quieter than that, but deeper. When Zoya accidentally left one of her sketchbooks at Ayan's house, he flipped through it and found countless drawings of moments they had shared. A teacup from their favorite stall, the silhouette of him reading, even the little crack on the bench they always sat on. It was all there, carefully remembered and lovingly drawn. That night, Ayan wrote a single line in his notebook. Asterisk, I didn't know love looked like this. Asterisk, there were no grand declarations, no dramatic music. But love was there, blooming silently in the spaces between their words. The kind of love that doesn't need to be loud to be real. The kind that sneaks in, settles quietly, and changes everything. Zoya's parents had to travel for an urgent family matter, and Ayan's parents left for a business trip around the same time. Both families trusted the housemaid and thought nothing of leaving their children behind for a few days. It was meant to be ordinary, uneventful, but when the familiar walls echoed with silence, something between them began to shift. The first day felt awkward. The usual comfort of shared moments was now tinged with awareness. There were no parents calling them in for dinner, no background noise of routine, just an unspoken sense that something was different. That evening, Zoya made tea and Ayan brought over a book. They sat quietly, unsure if they were doing anything wrong, yet unable to stop doing it. The silence between them wasn't heavy, it was alive. Every glance felt longer. Every word felt like it carried more weight than it used to. They talked more than usual about dreams, about fears they hadn't named before. Zoya confessed she sometimes woke up feeling empty for no reason, like something important was missing, but she didn't know what. Ayan listened, not trying to fix anything, just being there. And that mattered. They spent hours listening to music, reading, or just sitting quietly. One night, it rained harder than it had in weeks. The sound against the windows was hypnotic. Zoya, wrapped in a blanket, whispered, "Doesn't it feel like the world pauses when it rains?" Ayan nodded. Neither moved. Later, without thinking too much, they started cooking dinner together. It was clumsy. Zoya dropped salt all over the counter, and Ayan burned the chapati. They laughed until tears filled their eyes. Not because it was funny, but because it felt so real. So theirs, as if they were building something new without realizing it. The next day, Zoya asked him a question he wasn't prepared for. "Do you ever think about what this is?" Ayan didn't reply immediately. He looked at her, saw the sincerity in her eyes, and simply said, "Yes, I just don't know what to call it." She didn't push further. That honesty was enough. That night, Ayan wrote a few lines in his journal. "She asks the questions I've avoided all my life, and still makes me feel safe." It was the first time he admitted, even to himself, that he was falling for her. Not in a dramatic, storybook way, but in the kind of way that sneaks in slowly and stays. On the third day, while tidying up, Zoya found an old photo of Ayan and his brother. She didn't say anything, but kept it on the table. Ayan saw it and didn't flinch. Instead, he picked it up and told her the story of the day it was taken. It was the first time he spoke about the accident. Zoya listened, eyes soft, heart open. When he finished, she didn't offer empty words. She just held his gaze, and in that silence, he felt something heal. In those few days, time moved differently. They started to anticipate each other's needs. Ayan would bring her water before she asked. Zoya would play the songs she knew helped him focus. They weren't pretending to be anything. They were just being. On the fourth day, something changed again. They were sitting across from each other, when Zoya reached out and placed her hand over his. It wasn't planned. It wasn't bold. It just happened. Ayan didn't pull away. He looked down, then back at her, and smiled. It was the kind of smile that says more than words ever could. The line between friendship and something more had already blurred. Neither wanted to say it aloud, afraid that naming it might ruin it. But it was there, alive, undeniable. The tenderness, the trust, the way they looked at each other now. It was no longer innocent. But it wasn't wrong either. It was just real. The final night before their parents returned, they stayed up talking until the sky started to lighten. Zoya asked, "Do you think we'll be the same after this?" Ayan replied, "I hope not." She didn't expect that answer, but it made her smile. For the first time, they both allowed themselves to imagine what might come next. There was no kiss, no grand gesture, just a sense of something having changed permanently. In their hearts, they knew it would be impossible to return to who they were before. Love had quietly crept in, dressed as friendship, and now stood between them, unmistakable and full of possibility. When they parted the next morning to return to their own homes, it felt like leaving behind something sacred. They didn't speak about what had happened. They didn't need to. What mattered had already been shared, through gestures, glances, and moments that would stay with them forever. What happened between them wasn't shocking in the way gossip travels, but it was the kind of shock that wakes you up, that rearranges your heart. It wasn't about rules broken or boundaries crossed. It was about truth, a truth that had waited quietly to be seen. And now both of them saw it clearly. The day their parents returned, everything shifted. Ayan felt it the moment he saw his mother's tired smile, and the way Zoya's father scanned the room. Nothing had happened, yet everything had changed, and somehow that quiet change was now visible. Zoya looked different too, not outwardly, but in her eyes, like she had just returned from a journey no one else knew she'd taken.